Well, hey, good morning, Catalina Foothills Church. I'm Pastor John Stone here, and continuing our Tuesday morning devotions in Acts. We're in Acts 28, and I'm going to begin reading in verse 17. Paul has been shipwrecked at Malta, but then they've caught a ship and they've arrived at Rome. So this is after he's arrived at Rome. 3 days later, he called together the local Jewish leaders. When they had assembled, Paul said to them, "My brothers, although I have done nothing against our people or against the customs of our ancestors, I was arrested in Jerusalem and handed over to the Romans. They examined me and wanted to release me because I was not guilty of any crime deserving death. The Jews objected, so I was compelled to make an appeal to Caesar. I certainly did not intend to bring any charge against my own people. For this reason, I've asked to see you and talk with you. It is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound with this chain." They replied, "We have not received any letters from Judea concerning you, and none of our people who have come from there has reported or said anything bad about you. But we want to hear what your views are, for we know that people everywhere are talking about this sect." They arranged to meet Paul on a certain day and came in even larger numbers to the places where he was staying. He witnessed to them from morning till evening, explaining about the kingdom of God, and from the law of Moses and from the prophets he tried to persuade them about Jesus. Some were convinced by what he said, but others would not believe. So a couple of interesting things here to think about on your Tuesday morning. Some things we've actually talked about in the past, not on our Tuesday morning devotions, but in our church. And the first one is, Paul says, as he makes this appeal to the Jews, he shows us that he's going to use who he is, his Jewishness in this case. Even though he's a Christian, he's going to use what God has given him culturally to try to reach people. Even as in Corinthians, he says, "To the Jew, I become the Jew." And you can see him making an appeal in verses 18, 19, and 20 about him being Jews and how he never intended to say anything bad about the Jews. In fact, he says this, and it's beautiful. "It is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound and chained." Notice he, at that point, doesn't say it's because of Jesus Christ, which would be true, or because I believe that Jesus is the Messiah, but he says it's because the hope of Israel. He tries to find a point of contact with them. He tries to connect to where they are. He doesn't, first of all, bring them to his way of thinking, but he says, hey, we both had a common hope as Jews, and I want to talk to you about that common hope. And we see Paul being gospel-centered and reaching across the aisle to those. But then later, as we've talked about in Leviticus in this church, when they do gather to hear from him, we're told these beautiful things. That in verse 23, he witnessed to them from morning till evening, explaining about the kingdom of God, and from the law of Moses and from the prophets, he tried to persuade them about Jesus. Now, the law of Moses means the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and the prophets are the whole rest of the Old Testament. But what is Paul doing there? He's doing something that we talked about in Leviticus. He is trying to persuade them and show them that Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. There are not two plans in God's economy for how people will be saved, but those in the Old Testament and now those in the New Testament all were to look to the Messiah, the hope of Israel. They were to look to Christ. That in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, it is the same message, that those folks who will be saved will believe in Jesus Christ. The Christians in the Old Testament and the Christians in the New Testament are believing the same thing. That if we look and understand properly the law of Moses, and if we understand the prophets, that we will find Christ there. And what is Paul doing? Paul is doing the very thing that Mark Ressler led us to understand in this church. He's doing evangelism with those he knows best. He doesn't first try to persuade the Romans. He doesn't first try to persuade those who are guarding him, but he first tries to persuade his own people, the people he knows and loves, his family, his Jewish nation, that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. He's doing evangelism. So what a beautiful passage to begin our Tuesday morning, a passage where Paul appeals to his people about their hope. He begins to connect to them where they are, not bringing them to him. And then he begins to talk about the kingdom of God in Jesus. Friends, I hope you have a great day. Look forward to being with you again soon. You have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you either this Sunday in person or online or next Tuesday on the devotion. Have a great day.